We begin now the second half of the book of Ezekiel. We have been building towards the dreadful moment when Jerusalem falls and the destruction of the temple and the monarchy is complete. Ezekiel even lost his own wife as part of a prophetic sign act which preceded it. Chapter 24 concludes with the Lord telling Ezekiel that a survivor will come and tell him that the city has fallen, and then he will be released from his silence. That moment is not narrated until chapter 33. For now, between chapters 25 and 32, we have a series of oracles against the nations, much like we have seen in Jeremiah and Isaiah and in the minor prophets. If God has not held back justice from his own people, he will certainly not withhold it from the other nations, especially those which either celebrated their demise or took advantage of it in some way and made it even more unbearable. Even though we must await confirmation of the disaster, verse 3 of chapter 25 mentions the profaning of God's sanctuary, along with the land being made desolate and the people going into exile. So the disaster has happened, and chronologically speaking, most of these judgment oracles belong after chapter 33. In fact, this long section of oracles is all over the place when it comes to chronology. Chapter 24 was dated in the 9th year, 26 is in the 11th, 29 is in the 10th, or at least it starts off in the 10th. After verse 17, it leaps to the 27th. Part way through chapter 30, we go backwards to the 11th year, and finally, in chapter 32, we are in the 12th. They are grouped together like this because of their theme, and, generally speaking, the prophecies move from north to south. Israel's closest neighbours, Ammon, Moab, Edom, and Philistia, are addressed first. Ammon was delighted when Jerusalem fell, with all the horrors that entailed. In verse 3, Ammon said, "Aha!" But verse 6 is more elaborate, describing clapping the hands, stamping the feet, and rejoicing with all malice. We have all seen such celebrating around the world with the recent atrocity in Israel, but many of us will also remember certain countries dancing in the streets after 9/11. Such reactions are hard to bear. The destruction that would come to Ammon would be brought by Babylon, but in verse 4, the reference is to nomadic tribes who would take over the land afterwards. It is not mentioned here, but in 2 Kings 24, both Ammon and Moab sent raiding parties against Jerusalem, and so helped the Babylonians destroy the city. It is only said that Ammon rejoiced, and Moab declared that Judah is like all the other nations. Why leave out all the other things they did? Presumably, a long list could be compiled, and no doubt much of it was known to the exiles as part of their awkward relationships with these neighbours over the years. But the Lord wants to focus on specific things. Moab, by thinking Judah was like everyone else, was really insulting the God that the Israelites claimed made them special. Moab is in essence saying that no God stands behind Israel, or if there is such a one as Yahweh, he is not a threat. Thus Israel can be ransacked like anyone else. The Lord obviously wants to respond on this particular point. Moab will also be given over to foreigners. The oracle against Edom is particularly angry. They have committed a grievous offence. They had made an alliance with Judah against Babylon, but then switched sides and helped Babylon destroy Jerusalem. Psalm 137, verse 7, calls on the Lord to remember Edom for this. Obadiah accuses Edom of gloating and looting and even capturing fugitives. This time the agent of judgment will be Israel. Philistia took part in some unspecified destruction as part of unending hostilities. They acted with malice in their revenge. The Lord will punish them directly. The vengeance is described as great and with wrathful punishments. Chapter 26 gives us the date of the 11th year, though not the month. It is the year of Jerusalem's fall, and so this oracle may have been given very soon after. Tyre is the next target. The oracles against the preceding nations seem like footnotes compared to the space given to Tyre. The oracles against her will flow until some way through chapter 28. Tyre was an island fortress near Lebanon and was extremely popular for trade because of its location. There must have been some rivalry with Judah, because Tyre's particular fault, according to verse 2, is that she saw in Judah's doom the opportunity for profit. Tyre exclaims, "Aha! Broken is the gateway of the peoples," meaning that whilst others could sail directly to Tyre, those going by land were controlled by Judea from various directions. Tyre will therefore be destroyed by various nations, particularly Babylon. The Hebrew word for Tyre, which means rock, sounds like the other word for rock, and so in verse 4, the idea that the walls will be reduced to their foundations is a pun on this word, which is repeated later. The coastlands will be appalled and mourn for this city, partly because of what they have lost, but mainly because something so grand and prosperous and enduring could be so completely obliterated. The imagery in the last few verses of the deep covering the island, a symbol of chaos and uncreation, along with the inhabitants being sent to the underworld to dwell among primeval ruins, would have absolutely horrified the ancient imagination.